Hello everyone and welcome back to Beaker's UFO channel. This is Cattle Mutilation Solved Part 2. In Part 1 we did a bunch of science and I promised a bunch of pictures and some video, and it was going to backtrack into Part 1. So here we go. We're going to go back to Wikipedia unicellular organisms, and you can look that up yourself. It proves the oldest living organisms are actually 3.8 to 4 billion years old. So what? Well, what that means is they've had a lot of time to evolve. This is why nobody's caught them or identified them, etc., etc. Let's get into some pictures. That was our amoeba. And just a good picture of one here, microscopic on Earth. If you're wondering why they're so large, believe it or not, radiation enlarges things. You thought the Hulk was just a TV show, but in reality, people have grown vegetables and fruits much, much, much larger using radiation. I'm not so sure about how healthy it is to eat, but anyway, here we go. That's an amoeba. Here's the pseudopods with the false feet. In the middle is a nucleus. It's dark in color. And then here's some food that it's digesting in its body. Okay, real simple. This is the scary one. This is the brain-eating amoeba. And this is at its beginning stage, going through its process. The interesting thing is if you want to go into the ocean or the water, you actually can. You need a nose plug. If you inhale this, your chances of dying are huge. If you swallow it, your stomach acids actually kill it and it does nothing to you. So just an interesting tidbit. This is a picture of a notchback in large. You'll notice he's a little bit different. These are the pseudopods coming out of him, and he can actually cover up his body a little bit with them, kind of like a protection mechanism. This is a mutilation in process, and what I believe he's doing is he's shifting them around to get better leverage, because he's going to use gravity to hold them down and do what he does. So why are they killing was where I left off in Part 1, and they're killing because we're calling them with electromagnetic activity. And now how are they doing what they do? They're using the cholesterol. They're using they're using the byproducts of what's in them from their last kill, which is some pretty nasty diseases. And what they're doing is they're injecting it into their victim through their rear end, through their mouth, and then they're using plasma to cut away at the tissue. Now, that's why they leave the bones in the carcass. It's too much for them, and that's not what they're interested in, because remember, they feed off of bacteria. That's what they're into. So why are they going after cattle and not humans more predominantly is real simple. A cattle can weigh upwards of 2,000 pounds. There's a lot of meat in there. A human being at 2,000 pounds is only 10% of that, so we're basically a Tootsie Pop. Now, there have been instances where evidently they've been threatened and they've killed humans, but I think over their evolution, they've discovered what their favorite meals are, and they're going for the larger prey. So if you're a 2,000-pound man, beware. This is called binary fission, and this is interesting because an amoeba splits into two, and this shows it here. But what's interesting about it is this dude just became these two dudes, and now what this guy knows, these two know. So if we start teaching them that lasers aren't a threat to them and pointing them in the sky, and they start doing this split, we're going to be in trouble. So that's how they learn. Again, they only have the memory of a calculator, so it's not that advanced, but they have had upwards of 4 billion years to evolve. This was the guy on Mars picture that I showed you. It may make more sense now. This would be the amoeba's body. The nucleus is clearly seen. It's not a face. It's not a statue. It's a living creature. And what he's doing, remember this image back here, all he's doing is sticking out these pseudopods to hold himself up in the shade. He's kicking back. Come on, it's Mars. There's not much to do there. Now, this picture is really interesting. We're going to go back to I forget which part it was, but I showed you a video, and in that video, it contained, I believe it was in step 5, the Eudora, it might be called a flash mob. If you remember that, I pointed out that these little areas, if you took an overhead picture, would look like long lines and dots. Well, guess what? There it is. The weird thing is, this is a picture of the moon, and these are a lot of them, just to give you an idea. And obviously they're social because there's a whole group of them. And remember with the binary fission, they split. Not only do they split, they actually can rejoin to grow larger. So quite an interesting science deal. Here's some more pictures of them. By the way, NASA explained these pictures and others that had hairs on the screen and coffee stains and these white marks all over it. I'd like to know what kind of parties were going on in the photograph room, but the truth of the matter is I went back and I looked at this, and I believe Scott Waring had done a big mention on this as an understatement. And these guys are a bunch of flying giant amoebas, aka extraterrestrial extremophiles, and they're kicking back on the moon. This guy, there's only 2 explanations how an animal could end up here, and one would be a tornado whipped him up there and left him. The other is for some reason the amoeba didn't like him. You got me on that one, but there's a lot of pictures like this in areas that don't have tornadoes or winds, and I think that's been explained now. This is a picture of a notchback, aka critter, aka extraterrestrial extremophile. I'm going to call him notchbacks from now on. He's firing up his phasers, to so speak, with plasma, and he's most likely got something inside of him that he's attempting to extract. This is the STS incident. It shows the notchbacks behind the tether. NASA claimed that these guys were ice crystals in front of the window of the space station. This picture clearly shows it behind the tether. An interesting fact is this tether is 12.7 miles long, which makes this sucker roughly 3 to 4 miles wide. Quite a big guy. The only ones that are found on Earth that I'm aware of from my research, there are 15 to 30 foot markings in the ground, sometimes as small as 8 foot, that are waterproof with those holes punched into the ground that I was speaking about, and smushed bushes in the Wikipedia definition. These guys were probably landed and feeding off of bacteria in the ground. The reason it's by cattle, believe it or not, is cattle poop probably causes a lot of bacteria after rains in the soil, and it's probably a great feeding ground for them. This just shows a notchback. Interesting tidbit about this picture and why I'm showing it is it shows the notch, but different cameras will show different clarities of the nucleus and their bodies. They show up in multiple colors, and I'm going to keep that a secret for somebody who wants to steal my story, but they are translucent, which is a clear, a white color, a red, and an orange, and sometimes they have glowing colors like this. Anyway, interesting tidbit. This is the notorious deer in the headlights. Unfortunately, this isn't a headlight. This was caught on a trail cam. This would be a tree line. Here's a tree. This is roughly 30 feet. This is going to be the horizon over here. This is not a car in the air. This is a notchback firing up his weapons, and most likely this deer is gone. This was the picture of him feeding. This is a notchback inverted sideways. Now, why is he doing that, and why is he shifting? It's pretty simple. It's probably hard for him to fly and eat at the same time. You'll notice 2 pseudopods with plasma, and what he's using is gravity to push down and put his tentacles, to so speak, his pseudopods, his false feet, farther in as he chisels away, using bacteria and the plasma to cut away at the flesh, core them, and drop them. At most of the sites for cattle mutilation, it's not where the guy got killed. It's up in the air. And if you're an animal lover, it was probably quite instant because he was suffocated. This is also why there's no noise heard, and the herds are spooked, to say the least. This is a picture of a notchback flying by the moon. You can see the notch here. I prefer much clearer pictures in my work, but this will do the trick. And it just shows one cruising by and not a bunch of them taking a nap on the planet. This is another notchback. Notice the nucleus is not seen in the picture, but the pseudopods are beginning to form or are showing. The notchback works as a rudder as he flies and twists, and he can use his false feet to stabilize himself and change direction. This is an outstanding picture of the sun, and it shows a notchback going to take a dive. He's going to go this way, go into it, and come out. And you can clearly see his notch here and his nucleus. This is not an animated GIF, but it shows you coming in, and he bails. I'll show you a video of that. Once again, we're going back to part 1. Just a reminder, that's a notchback. He's real big on Earth. In our atmosphere, they can be roughly 8 to 30 feet. You've seen them in the sky. You can judge for yourself. This is microscopic on our planet. There's the nucleus. This is another trail cam. You cannot see the clarity here, and the reason that I'm showing this picture is if you're a rancher and you want to catch these guys on video doing an actual kidnapping, so to speak, you need to change your cameras to have a UV filter over the lens. So if you modify that, this would be really crystal clear. You'd see the nucleus, and most likely you'd see his notch, and you might even get better details of the body. And you might actually catch one on video and be a superstar. Now, I promised you some videos. This is a really crappy video taken from a hand camera, and that's what they got on it. Now, somebody put this through a processor, and when they put it through and did the video editing on it and cleaned it up, here's the notchback, there's the notch. You can clearly see the body. He's doing his frisbee motion. And here we're going to get a much better picture of him because they're going to zoom in. And this is outstanding because it shows the frisbee action of how he's actually flying. I believe he may be changing spinning direction, is how they keep afloat. It's a great video. Let's go on to the next. I promised you a guy feeding off the sun, which sounds quite incredible, but there's one that just shot into it. He's probably on the backside, so you can't see him. In a few moments here, we'll have, oh, there he goes. We'll have some that are a little bit clearer here. And this is 2 different systems that we're talking about. They have their feeding, which is eating bacteria, and this is recharging for their plasma-based defense mechanism. Here you can clearly see him come by, scoop it up, it absorbs into his body just like the grape. And these are clearly notchbacks flying by because you can, without question, see the nucleus in the center. Sorry guys, they're not UFOs, but this is only my second video. Give me a little bit of time and we'll get deep into that as well. Like I said, I am a believer. We've been lied to. This is the truth. Let's go on to the next video. I think you get the point here. This is my final video. This is the International Space Station. You can see the official Not Another Stupid Answer logo up here. And I'm going to press play. And here are some of our notchback buddies that are real curious flying by. Now, you can't tell me with all the windows in the International Space Station that every single astronaut has not seen these. Now, whether they know what they are or not is another question. They might have thought that they saw UFOs as well, but it's very interesting to me that since the 60s, which is what those pictures of the group of notchbacks that are all together on the moon are, haven't been figured out by now by people like astronauts, NASA, Mr. Bigelow, hello. So anyway, that concludes part 2. I hope you enjoyed this, and quite frankly, this presentation is really important to me because I live in the countryside, and ranchers, I sure love steaks, and I eat them real raw, so I want you guys to be protected out there. If you want to know how to protect yourself against these guys, they can only survive in salt water for 4 days, so they don't like salt water. They don't like light. You might want to hang a necklace around your cattle with some lights on it. That might actually help out, as silly as it sounds. If you shot one with the shotgun, it probably wouldn't do a damn bit of good, unfortunately. But they don't like light. And if you're trying to become Nikola Tesla and you're a rancher, stop doing that because you'd be called out. My name's Michael Kelty, and I just solved cattle mutilations. Coming up in my next videos, if you're still listening, I'm going to solve the Dyatlov Pass human mutilation incident. I'm going to solve the Baringo Reservoir human mutilation, the Chivray ski accident human mutilation, Operation Prado human mutilation, the Foo Fighters of World War II, and the Pentagon UFO videos ×3. So stay tuned. In the far future, if I get some responses where people actually don't call me too nuts, I can prove plant life on Earth that came from another planet that does not require sunlight. And I don't have physical proof, but I'm going to tell you where you can get it. So stay tuned. We got some interesting stuff coming up. And thank you for viewing.